Hi, Warriors. Slightly weaker dollar. How's everyone doing today? I know everyone's looking at what's happening in LA. So, I wonder how the economy is going to perform with social unrest across the country. It's not going to be the only city. So, we'll see what happens. I think it's just the beginning. So, let's take a look at some markets here. Just Blake and I, the dynamic duo for you guys. I hope that's okay. How you doing today, partner?
Good morning, Coach. Happy
Hey,
Monday.
hey, buddy. It's kind of weird to watch what's on TV, huh, bro?
Oh
Uh,
man, my wife has gone crazy. She's just like, "Are you seeing this and seeing that?" And I'm just like,
uh,
my son was in Disney,
yeah,
uh, and I was like, "All right, buddy, time to get home." He
yeah,
was over, in Orange County. I'm like, "Don't
yeah,
go north. Please just go straight east. Thank
yeah.
you."
So
Yeah.
I think it's the first time in history um, the U.S. military was called in on a domestic problem. I don't know
Is
if
it really? I
yeah,
didn't know that was that. I mean, when you I was stationed in Camp Pendleton, and
yeah,
the last thing you expect as a Marine is to be called into your own country.
yeah,
Uh, so that's it. And look, I'm gonna just say this. I'm gonna say this as being non-political. But when you start removing people that currently reside in your country, and whether they're illegal or not, you remove them out of the country, you are going to create
yeah,
domestic turbulence. And
yeah,
and you at home listening in right now can agree or disagree
yeah,
with with how it's happening, if it's happening, why is it happening. But the fact is if it's done, you will create problems. And this is what we're getting. And
yeah,
so whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, it is happening. And I mean, if you didn't see that coming, then
yeah,
yeah, it's like,
yeah,
come on,
yeah.
that's the
Blinders,
obvious.
yeah,
Yeah,
blinders on.
yes. Yes.
Yes.
And
So
so
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
just a new real. It's a new reality.
it is, and I mean, look, again, I'm not here to take sides. I'm just here to point out the obvious. But when you see, like, let's take somebody who is, I'm just gonna say, because I've lived in Southern California, and Arizona, place that's very very high in immigration. I know a lot
Yeah,
of people that are, you know, that are first, second, third generation Hispanic
yeah,
from Mexico,
yeah,
and you deport whether their family members are legal or illegal. You can make that call, but you deport them, you're gonna get backlash. So,
yeah. Well, I don't
and
think
I
that's surprising to
no,
the administration. I don't think they care that they're going to have backlash. Actually, it's a way to flex your muscle and
yeah,
show power. Anyway, it's sad to see this in America. I
it
love my
is.
country, and
Me
I'm
too.
starting to have a hard time recognizing it. That's all I'm saying. So, let's talk about making money.
Yeah, let's do
So,
it.
all right. So, I covered all my long positions in the dollar, and the reason is, we still haven't taken out this low. We held it Friday, but I think there's going to be a better buy in the dollar once we take this low out, and I think we will in fairly short order. Maybe I'm
I'm with
wrong.
you, Coach.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
long a little euro from last night. Already took a piece off, but you see this low here. This is why I've stayed bearish a dollar, even though I traded both sides here. Um, we're not going to confirm this next low. Okay, so I'm waiting for it to flush, take the stops out, and then I'll be looking for long positions in the dollar. So and a pretty good rally. I think the next rally I've looked at COT and everything. There's just so many dollar bears. And if we make new lows, it's only going to intensify it. And I still think there has to be at least some type of shakeout of dollar bears. And if we get down here, I wouldn't be surprised to see a rally back to 102 after we make new lows. So, um,
Remember, Dale. Our strategy here is, and you and I both agree with this. A dip to 96 takes
yeah,
us to the long-term,
equality.
multi-year. I have to go back and look at it. I can't
Yeah,
remember. If it's multi-decade or multi-year trend line.
yeah,
Um, so that would be basically that puts the euro somewhere around 116.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm with you, man.
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking for in the dollar. Um, I really don't know what to do with the metals. I would just say we're getting up towards this 37, 38 level. Silver, you can't fade it. If you're going to fade any metal right now with the gold silver ratio doing what it's doing, you fade gold. Okay, you don't fade silver because it's a weak sister now. You have silver up 1%, gold up 0.24. So if you
I mean,
wanted to trade the
did you see? And I talked about this on the week ahead video. And by the way, I think silver's massive breakout. But did you look at the check out silver and look at the long term weekly chart? We're above the
oh,
618 retracement.
okay, so some people are talking cup on the verge of a major cup and handle breakout. Like, do you see that? Let's look at the weekly.
Yeah, look at the weekly, and but if you zoom out, I can show you later too.
All
But
right,
I'm just saying we're above. You know what? Don't.
go ahead, grab it.
No. You go
Oh,
ahead. I'm just gonna.
uh,
I was just gonna say I will show you a little bit later, so you don't have to go on draw it. But we're above the long-term 618 retracement, which is really freaking bullish. So
yeah, yeah. The only thing that's not bullish is this,
yeah.
which I have in a lot of things. I mean, I was looking at, what's one of the darlings on Wall Street is Palantir, right?
Oh God,
I
whatever
mean,
they do, yes.
what do they do?
Government contract, something or other. Who knows? They
Yeah,
they their valuations something silly. I was reading about them a
check
couple.
this R, check this RSI out.
That's so gross.
That's like a second drive to a top.
Yeah.
So and this is glaring. The S&Ps had the same kind of setup, remember, before we went into the swoon? We had weekly divergence in the S&Ps. You can't trade off weekly divergence because, it could continue to diverge. You need maybe 4 hour. I like to have, if I have daily, I want to see at least a 4 hour lineup with daily divergence. I need it on a 4 hour too, but I'm just saying there's some, warning signs about this. I saw a guy talking about, the new regime we have here, moving from the global trading system, it was everyone, to all these, to mercantilism is what another word for nationalism in the economy. And yet he says the markets are trying to act like nothing's changed. And I think that's a good point, and that they're discounting or complacent about the changes that are taking place, plus all the geo risk here. Really, I don't think our government has a solution for Russia, Ukraine, solution for Iran, solution for China. It's really just a lot of bark. I don't think we're in a position to settle these things, despite the promises that the president be able to do it. If he's out there asking Putin to help him with the Iranians, to me, that's pretty desperate. So anyway, just the market's really whistling past the graveyard with all these geo risks. Doesn't mean we're not going to go to 7,000 in the S&Ps, but I think we're getting closer, Blake. Maybe we just have to make that new high here for this wave to be complete. You were talking about that. Um, it
Yeah, and
kind of
you know,
it looks like a
yeah,
layup.
It seems like it, but okay. And this is the point I made on the week ahead video. I mean, we had a decent jobs report. Wasn't bad.
Yeah,
We have these China-US trade talks that are taking place in London. There's a handshake deal, whatever that means, for
yeah.
like all these precious metals and not precious metals.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
strategic metals,
yeah, the
rare earth,
rare
rare
earth
earth.
metals
You know,
and
that was a very good band.
huh?
You're
Oh,
probably too young, but
I
they
am too
were.
young.
All right. Well, everyone, Google it. Rare earth. They played some pretty good jams.
Well,
Uh,
with the ongoing trade talks, the jobs report, you would have thought that S&P we would have creamed right into new highs on Friday, and we didn't. And that's the thing that probably has me worried the most is that there should have already been catalysts that's driven us above highs, and we just
okay.
haven't seen. So.
Yeah. And well, maybe this is what's holding it back. I mean, that was a pretty good two-way, big rally after it looked like a breakdown, right? I mean, now this looks like a little flag, right? So from here to here is going to take you back up here. Maybe we're going to go for that 470 level in the 10-year. So, and the TLT doesn't look much better coming in today. This was, bounce, but, you know, now are we going to have a continuation and wash out to new lows? Possible. So maybe rates are going to be are the thing that's holding things back here in the market. I know I'm still looking to do some put buying. I still haven't had a signal to go back into Uber, but there are here's Uber. So I'm just waiting for a rally back to about, not it doesn't even have to get to 90. And Nvidia up here looks a lot like the S&Ps. A lot of people are using it as a proxy for the S&Ps now. It's grinding. Here's your last confirmed high on the 4 hour back in May 25th.
So
So we've,
divergent.
yeah, so, you know, tough calls. But I'd be looking for a pullback in these markets, whether we make a new high or not. I think I've heard a lot of the Tom DeMark stuff is popping up all over for different stocks. I'm not familiar with it, but they go, series of 9 and then 13, and there's a plethora of them out there. And
Awesome.
people don't pay like 5, 10K a month to get DeMark stuff if it didn't work.
Yeah, I was in I don't you know this. I think you know this. When I first moved back here to Scottsdale, my I rented an office out of a small little hedge fund down the street. The problem
Yeah,
is that I used to do the morning edge was the morning edge used to be the face show, but before we
yeah,
had Forex Analytics,
yeah.
that's we called it the morning edge. I used to get up at 2:15 a.m. I was in the office by 3:15 a.m. But in the same office complex is DeMarc.
Wow.
And the daughter was the office manager. And so I met her this is 10, 15 years ago. They're still in that building. I just could not I only did it for a year. I moved my stuff out of there after a year. I'm like, I can't get up at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore. It's just not natural. So, but
No.
they have a little operation, but yeah, they charge an arm and a leg for stuff that people live and die by it. I mean, Katie Stockton uses it all the time.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of people. So when somebody who's well versed, if you're following along with them, what like Katie's a good example. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to listen. I mean, it's a system. It's just like any other system.
Yes. Signals fail.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But if they're going off, you should be paying attention,
Yeah.
especially if they're useful to people. So,
Yeah. So I wanted
um,
to make our community aware of it, that there's in case you want to like lighten up on some longs, you don't have to go ahead and get short, but there are plenty of warnings out there that, we could be there this week or probably this week. So,
Yeah.
um,
Dale, you mind if I take over the screen here?
no, go ahead, buddy.
Okay. So yeah, so it's a good warning, I think, for right now, that we have to be super careful in this environment. John was just saying, Sterling's hitting lows. We were just in the Forex Analytics chat room just moments ago. I was just saying that this is actually 9 minutes ago, cable slumping towards lows. We are at lows of the session. I still think we're in breakout territory, by the way, just so you all know. We are at new highs. RSI is divergent. I'm not long cable here. Would I reconsider down here at 134.50? Absolutely.
Yeah,
These are levels that I still think are worth buying, but we're consolidating in breakout territory, and that's the thing that
yeah,
you have to be considerate of. So a couple of things that I wanted to show you, Dale, with the silver market, and this is a big deal to me. Silver, and let's go over to the weekly chart and let's zoom out. Okay, so you take the all-time highs in silver back here in 2011 to the lows here in 2020. The 618 retracement is at 3540, 3548 actually. Well, it depends on
right
I
here.
yeah, well, we're above it. Yeah, we're above it
Yeah.
by
Okay.
by 90 cents. So we're and it's this red line right here that you can see. So we're above it. So yes, we're breaking out. Yes, RSI is overbought on a daily chart. It is not divergent on a daily chart because you can
No,
see here's the previous high, there's the current high. So it's a confirmed high,
confirming.
right?
You
Right,
got it.
Dale?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, intraday though, as you were just pointing out, we're hitting new highs with relative strength diverging intraday. So I would
Yeah,
venture to
but
guess.
Blake, it's over 80. I don't, they don't count to me if they're diverging and staying above 80. It's too much mo. I'm not saying it works, but it lowers the probability of it coming off. Your best shorts on divergences is when the RSI stays under 70 at a new high.
Oh, I sure
That's
as
a
hell wouldn't
lesson.
be shorting, but if that
I
divergence
know
just
you wouldn't.
allows a little bit of a dip to
Yeah,
36, that's where you got to be a buyer. I just
yeah.
can't chase over above 80 or not.
Anything.
Yeah, I
Don't
can't
chase
chase any.
anything.
Don't,
Yeah,
yes, no, no FOMO, no FOMO,
yeah. Right.
no FOMO. I was gonna say you
Oh,
yo-yo,
I know.
but I'm not
I
gonna say
know.
anything. Yeah, just it's divergent up here, as you can see. So you just want to be buying dips. And while we're above the 618 retracement, while you're above, you can actually even you can argue, well, while you're above $35, there is zero reason to be short silver. Zero. And you just want to be a buyer on dips. But the question is how deep of a dip and how much of a dip are we going to find? Have you seen platinum? Holy
Yeah,
crap,
it's yeah. And
gone freaking nuts.
Stelios was all over platinum before it turned, and so was Tracy.
See, I can tell my wife her
Her
ring is
ring?
is is actually in platinum, not 14 karat gold anymore, or
Yeah. White
yeah,
gold.
white
White
gold.
gold. Yeah.
It's not in white gold, it's actually in platinum because it actually is.
Yeah.
It is a softer metal, but back in the day, it used to be platinum was the metal to be in. But anyway, it's that's been a hell of a rally there. I want to take a little bit of look at currencies because there's not a lot happening right now, but I still look at euro as in it's constructive. Am I long right now? No. I'm like Dale. I got out of my dollar shorts. I was actually short dollar Canadian over the weekend, and I just closed it out this morning. We are still in breakdown territory in the dollar
Yeah.
Canadian, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
We're below that 137 level, so I still theoretically should be short. I'm just not comfortable being short dollars right at this very second for all the same reasons you talked about too, Dale. And if you go over to the trades room, you can see this morning, whoops, I didn't want to show you that I was long dollar max, but I am. But you can see I closed the dollar Canadian already this morning. So
Yeah.
I put it in the trades room. So if you guys want a running total of what positions I'm in at any given time. You can do it right here. You can find it in the trades room. Everything is, we call it time stamped. Everything's time stamped. So So anyway,
And
going
if
back to
you're in
the,
the room, Blake, they get it right away when you're doing it.
oh yeah,
Not,
yeah. I mean,
not yes, yeah,
yeah, it's not 10 minutes after the fact and it's moved
right.
20 pips. No, it's within seconds of that. Hey, guess what? I just saw Grega Horvat joined us this morning. Now, before we bring in Grega, and Grega looks like he's jumping in because he knows that we are light. Ryan is on with Tracy Shy Girl on Ninja Trader Live right now, their morning show. So Ryan's over there making an appearance. Cayman's in Belgium, and we have Grega here, but and it's a Greek holiday. It's always a Greek holiday in Greece, but Steve and Stelios are out because it's a Greek holiday. But we were talking about rare earth, and this is one thing I would just want to mention before I pass it over to Grega. Um, China and the U.S. are talking right now. Hassett
Yeah.
just was on CNBC and he just said there's a handshake deal. We were just discussing that a handshake deal between China and the U.S. for these rare earth metals, which are really important because if you look at China and how they mine rare earth versus everybody else, you can see how important that's going to be to our technology sector moving forward, which
They had to shut down some auto production because of a lack of them, and we
yeah,
also
it's
need them in military equipment too.
yeah, I mean it's these rare earth metals are in everything that we're doing nowadays, and as you can see, China obviously is the
Wow.
leader there. So these are things that obviously we're in the chat room talking about, guys. If you want to be in the Forex Analytics chat rooms, it's $1 for 10 days. Jump in there, come in, have conversations with us, see what I'm trading, blah, blah, blah. All right. But I wanted to point that out because as long as they're making progress, this is a dollar positive. Now, I'm with Dale looking at the dollar and saying, hey, the dollar's in breakdown territory. It's still a bear flag pattern. It's still bearish. We're in this bearish channel, but it's kind of slow going. And until CPI comes out on Tuesday, or excuse me, on Wednesday, and producer prices on Thursday, we might be stuck in this. We might make it back to 100. The
Yeah.
lows right here around 98.50 are going to be important. I think we're going to be bouncing around these levels. So don't get too excited with the dollar until Wednesday. We will be covering obviously CPI live right here on the show. We're going to cover the instant reaction as soon as it comes out. But don't get too biased between now and then. And you know who's here to tell you that is probably Grega Horvat. Good
Hey,
morning, Grega.
before we go to
Oh,
Greg, Blake, if
yes.
you could just extend out the return line on this chart, that's the bottom trend line.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
no, not that. No, go the other way.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the weekly chart. Okay.
Now,
Here.
the bottom blue line,
This one?
extend out. No, to the right. That
This
one.
one? Okay.
Extend it out and see where it's going to come in sometime this week.
Probably sometime this week, I would say somewhere around the 97
Low
to 97 and a
97s.
quarter. Yeah, low
Okay.
97s. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Which
Thank you.
which again, this is Dale, this is what we were talking about earlier. This trend line goes all the way back to 2011. So
Yeah.
that one comes in around 96.50.
Yeah.
So again, this would be equivalent to the euro at 116.50 roughly. And as I had
Perfect
mentioned,
target.
yeah,
Ver-
remember
Very
this
big
is
level.
yeah, it is Grega. Good morning. This is
Hey
the
guys.
2005 lows. And it's been a huge pivot. We talk about it every day here on the Face Show. So everybody knows that if the euro gets to 116.50, you've got to be real careful with it. But anyway, Grega, good to see you. Thanks for joining in. I know we're kind of light on our team here today. And remember, if you want Grega's updated analysis every day, you can jump right into Forex Analytics, 30 different instruments. All you have to do is click Elliott Wave and you can see what charts he's looking at. Speaking of which, Grega, would you like to take over or do you want me to just show
Of
you?
course. No, I will take over.
All right, good. You're off vacation, you're off holiday. Looked like Spain was beautiful.
Yep.
It
Very
looked
beautiful. But a lot of Germans in on Mallorca, so
really, real.
yeah,
So
I
Mallorca
mean
what?
looked awesome.
only Germans.
Why?
And I met there like two from Slovenia, but they both lived in Germany. So
That's weird.
yeah, I mean, it's
Strange.
like their island. So if any
Oh,
Germans are here listening this webinar, they will know.
Okay.
nice.
All right.
Uh,
Living large, Grega.
okay.
And this is why you can afford to. Because he's got a nice desktop.
Okay. So
We just see your
regarding,
notes, by the way.
you can see my
Yeah.
notes, really.
Yeah. Tesla, Robotaxi, Elon
Yeah, everything.
Trump.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Let me change it. Okay, what about now?
No, same thing. Same.
Oh yeah,
No,
now
yeah.
we can see them.
Okay,
Yep.
we're good.
We are good.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can see dollar index.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So I think that the dollar is still has some unfinished business here to the downside. And like Blake said, I think that you mentioned what 96 or so. Well,
Yeah.
in Elliott wave terms, always when I'm looking at some projected levels, like wave C can be very similar to wave A. And when we complete this
That's
structure with
94.
5 waves, we come down to 95, 96 levels. That's
Yeah.
one thing. The next, probably the most important thing is that we had only 3 wave rise from that April lows to this high, and
Right.
we also broke this corrective channel to the downside. So I'm thinking that fifth wave, maybe if we get some very important news, like maybe from US-China talks, maybe inflation will weaken significantly, who knows, then maybe we'll have a breakdown week. But I certainly think that sooner or later we will be trading down here into fifth wave. But if we see some rally and even breaking this trend line, like Blake said, maybe we'll be chopping around here, but I think that there is still a very nice and very strong resistance. Of course, then maybe this wave 4 will become more complex, like a triangle, but still is part of this downtrend. So I think that the dollar will continue to the downside. Maybe we'll see this dollar weakness also coming if US-China talks will be successful, and the S&P 500 stocks in general will continue higher. Then obviously dollar could also drop on the back of that. So
How about 10-year yields have, I think, been somewhat supportive for the dollar? Are they due to come down, or are they going to break out to the upside, Grega?
I mean, they're still on a big charts.
Stubborn. They're very stubborn,
I have
like
some
me.
alternate views. Like, I mean, like Stelios, for example, we discussed last time. He believes that US yields will weaken unless he changed his mind over the last
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
But I just think, I mean, if we look at the US-China trade talks, everyone have the same goal, right? That they will bring some successful trade deals to the table so that they will have better economic conditions and for better global trade. So at the end of the day, I think that they will reach an agreement that everyone will be satisfied with. And I think that this could possibly be even bullish for the US yields. So I really doubt that Fed in this kind of environment would cut the rates. I also doubt that this will do it now when jobs are still very stable. And on top of that, we have basically inflation expectations coming expected for for
To
the last,
rise.
yes, from what, 2.3 to 2.5%, right?
Yeah.
Then you also had crude oil prices that were higher in the previous month. So I would not be surprised if we get data around 2.5% or maybe even higher. So I just think that US yields in general will either just chopping around here. We could obviously still see some retracement, which from an Elliott wave perspective is also expected. But
Yeah.
overall, I just think that that's a very important pattern for me that suggests that I'm looking this like months ahead, right? Now,
Yeah.
not just for the next what month or just a few weeks. So I just think that overall that the U.S. economy and every economy could possibly expand, and this could send the stock market to the upside. And of course, in such environment, I just doubt that Fed will be looking
Cutting.
to cut rates, and of course, if everything will expand, the US yields will most likely also move to the upside. So after some retracement, which by the way still could unfold over the next few months through the summer maybe, I think that dollar could retest the lows. At the same time, the US yields will stay in this range. But then later this year, I think that very big important changes to these trends could actually be around the corner.
Thank you, Grega. Yeah, it's 5:30. So you want to wrap it with your most important look before I bring Tony?
Yes, for this week, the most important is that I'm still expecting more dollar
Lower
weakness.
dollar.
Yes, and watch out for the commodity currencies. Commodity currencies, I think they are looking very good and could see much more gains, especially if these US-China
Aussie.
talks are positive. I think that Aussie Kiwi could do really, really well this week.
Okay. Thanks for
Did you say the Aussie Kiwi?
No,
Yeah.
Aussie and Kiwi.
And
Oh,
Kiwi.
Aussie and Kiwi. And there's a bullish wedge in that Aussie dollar.
Yeah, I see 6.5 on it. I've had that target for a while, Aussie. 6.5. 66.5.
Well, hey, I want to say thanks to Grega for jumping in here today. It's always great to
Grega's close. Yeah, Grega, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
You know what? I'll be like Elon Musk. Without me, Grega, you never would have been called a wizard. It's because of me. I got you elected to be wizard. All right? So anyway.
True. It's true.
Yeah, and you guys, you and Blake, it's your fault that people call me coach.
You've always been coach, buddy. Way before me.
All right. Listen, guys, going to be an active week. Take the trial, get into the chat room, see Blake's signals, Grega's work. F.A.C.E is only the tip of the iceberg. And here's at the tip of the iceberg is Tony Nash. Tony, great to have you back. I always like talking to you and getting your perspective. And, you know, we haven't talked in quite some time. So how are things going?
Oh, shit. I just, I
can't.
Hold on.
Yeah.
No, you promoted him and then I unpromoted him on accident because I was trying to promote. So here he is. There he is. My bad.
Yeah, you're going up and down the corporate ladder here with us today,
Tony. Sorry.
Anyway, buddy. Hey, nice to see you, Tony. How are you?
Great. I'm doing great, Dale. Thank you very much.
What's top of mind? I mean, since we talked, we had the crash, we had a record recovery in the shortest amount of time. We have a lot of geo stuff going on, a lot of trade deal stuff. What's your assessment of where we stand today in risk?
I think so. What's top of mind for me? So U.S.-China trade talks are top of mind. The dollar is top of mind. Rates are top of mind. Tech is top of mind, and S&P is top of mind. So those are the things that I'm thinking about. I think your team talked quite a lot about U.S.-China trade talks. I really want to, I guess, moderate expectations around the U.S.-China trade talks this week.
Okay.
We've been talking, so I run two things. I run a quant AI-driven shop called Complete Intelligence, where we do daily interval forecasts for 1,800 items. I run a geopolitical podcast with a guy named Albert Marco called Cloak and Dagger. So we have a geopolitical focus and we have a quant focus. Okay. So we've been saying for probably 6 months, well, since election night, that China would not align with the US for at least 6 months after election day. So there are a lot of reasons for that. Part of that is domestically driven in China. Xi Jinping cannot be seen to be aligning with the U.S. for domestic political reasons. He has to be seen as powerful. It has to be positioned as him holding the cards and so on. So,
Well, I mean, they broadcast anti-American stuff all the time, so definitely he can't be seen as coddling up to the U.S.
right.
Right?
And
Go ahead.
he is in the middle of a power struggle in China. There's a lot of gossip around
Yeah, I've
uh,
seen that.
power struggle that he has. So he can't be seen to be making major agreements now. We might have incremental progress on things, but I want to be very careful um, to um, to temper expectations around U.S. China. So if people are putting trading strategies together around U.S. China, I just be really careful. I'm not saying you're going to be wrong if you're aggressive, but I think we want to be really careful here.
Okay, so the trade deal that was supposed to be the easiest was with Japan, and it hasn't been so easy, has it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more going on with Japan than is being said. Initially you look at guys like Masa out of Japan who committed, I don't know, $500 billion or something to invest in the US. So he's a
Yeah.
very influential guy in Japanese politics. So, I think there's probably a lot more going on with Japan than is expected. I think certain parts, of course, they've been, I guess, somewhat difficult. But again, we have these. There is an expectation that, or there is a statement that the U.S. is very nationalistic. We've become nationalistic, and the assumption on that is that the other side of the table is just this, multinational heaven where everyone gets along. Japan, very nationalistic. China, very nationalistic. India, very nationalistic. The EU, very nationalistic. So, we're negotiating against people who always put their country's interests in mind. And that's kind of what a government is for, is to represent its people. So is Japan gonna kind of hold fast to some things like autos and other things? Yeah, they're gonna defend that stuff. I'm not necessarily sure that means things are going poorly because these have been barriers that have been in place for decades. So the other thing to keep in mind, and we've written about this on Cloak and Dagger quite a lot, is this administration is taking a decade-long, what normally takes a decade in terms
Yeah.
of world trade and multilateral negotiations, and they're trying to compress it down to probably 3 to 6 months. So, if you put April 2nd as the start of this, they're really trying to do things in 3 to 6 months. So whether you're favorable or unfavorable to the administration, I don't think it really matters. I think we have to look at, where are things going and why are they going there? What is the pace at which they're happening? And it's actually happening very quickly. So, watch the space. I think it'll be August really before we have major announcements in China. I think we may have announcements in other places, say late June, early July, those sorts of timeframes. EU, I'm not really sure. I think we'll have small progress with the EU. I don't really think the EU is incentivized nor interested in making major announcements with the US. So just be careful there. I think in terms of, say, the dollar and the S&P. So, I'm happy to share my screen, Dale, on some.
Oh, go ahead, buddy.
Okay, great. So, we have this product called CA Markets Alpha that we launched a few months ago, where we're doing daily interval forecasts on this stuff. So let me walk you through a few things. So
Oh, thank you for that.
so what we're doing here is this top line. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but any
Yeah,
customer
we could
can
see
come in
it
and
pretty good.
say, hey, I want, here are the 20 items I want. And this customer wants, they want TLT and gold and other things. So we're looking at rates. Actually, this is a 20 interval forecast. So we're looking at rates actually, say, late June, early July, of ticking up just a bit. So while we'll see them teeter a bit in the short term, we are looking at rates kind of ticking up a bit late in the month. So while we want, I think that it would be good to see a breather in rates here. We're not necessarily expecting them to tick down right away, despite all of the activity that Scott Bessent is doing to take them down. Gold, I heard you guys talking about platinum. It looks like we expect a good week for gold, but we do expect gold to tail off, say at the 3-week point, something like that. The dollar, we're looking at the dollar, rising a bit this week, but again, relatively flat. Now, our expectation, we've been talking about this again ever since Trump was elected. You have to keep in mind with the dollar that when Trump left office, the dollar on the DXY was trading at about 90, 91, somewhere in there. So I listened to Blake's weekend podcast and you guys this morning. We are expecting the dollar down to about 93, maybe even weaker.
Wow.
But that's not going to happen right away. It's going to take a little bit of time. We have to think in terms of trade policy. A weaker dollar really will help the administration with things like exports. And so, that's probably longer term, 6, 9 months, something like that. But we will gradually get there, and it's going to take a Fed accommodating uh, the administration in order to get there as well. We're going to
Do
have
they cut in July, Tony? Your work show that?
um, I don't think they cut in July, unfortunately. My personal view is, we've seen inflation come down dramatically.
Yeah.
We are seeing weaker payrolls. We are seeing a slightly tougher jobs environment. If you look at, we had 3 cuts last fall. If you look at what was happening last fall, there weren't many differences between last fall and now, except that uh, the inflation has let up quite a lot. So my view is that the Fed is extremely politically driven right now, extremely politically driven, and they're refusing to budge because that's what the administration wants. And so
You
it's
really
going to
think
be
that's the whole basis behind them not easing? Is because
absolutely.
Paul is adversarial with Trump.
It's not just Powell. I have friends who sit with these guys all the time, and um, you know, one of them was sitting with one of the Fed governors at a dinner a couple months ago, and they walked away going, "Wow, that guy really hates Trump." So you have these Fed governors who actively and vocally hate Trump. So they're not going to accommodate the administration until they have to.
Okay.
So, it's the reality. The Fed being non-political is one of the biggest jokes in DC, and that's a location where there's a lot of jokes, right? So,
When will they have to? When jobs numbers start to cave, or when the market starts to sell off, or
well,
what's
you
going to
know,
move them?
okay, so we had an inflation reading a couple weeks ago. I know we have CPI and PPI this week, but we're on target to have a 2.5% inflation for the first half, which is dramatically lower than we saw in the second half of last year.
Yeah.
And that will likely go down. I've talked a lot about tariffs over the last couple years, and I don't believe we're going to see major inflation because of tariffs. I mean, because this China discussion and other discussions, that'll keep the tariffs within certain bounds. So we're not going to see the skyrocketing inflation that people have talked about, a lot of economists and portfolio managers and stuff.
Some
So,
people are saying it's deflationary, Tony. The tariffs. I don't know how they come up with it,
you
but
know what?
do you know?
It
Have you heard
depends on
that?
the day, man. I mean,
Yeah.
one day it's inflationary, another day it's deflationary. So you know, when I look at what my family buys generally, okay, we don't buy new cars every month, okay?
Right.
But when we look at our food, that's all made
Yeah.
locally, okay?
Yeah.
When we look at, our household goods, other things, paper products, all that stuff's made locally. So, it's not as if we're going out and buying, new electronics every week and new cars and all
Right.
this other stuff. So that's been a lot of my reasoning underlying the fact that I actually don't think inflation is going to spike on tariffs.
Okay.
So I think when we get into Q3, when we have inflation falling on average below, say, a moving average below, say, 2.5% to 2.2 or something like that, I think it's really uncomfortable for the Fed. When we have, jobs in certain places, we're going to see jobs declining. Look at what's happening in California. We're going to see people moving out of places like California increasingly to beautiful places like Florida. And so, I think we're going to have job problems in pockets where the Fed will want to accommodate. And so, anyway, I just think that it's going to be a political tussle to get the Fed to move, but they will eventually move in this year. There will be more than one cut. And they're always late. They're always late. But for some reason, it's fine, and not to get overly political here, but it's fine to cut 3 times in Q3 and Q4 under a Democratic administration. But under a Republican administration, for some reason, we have to have sound money.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that doesn't really compute for me.
okay. You brought up Los Angeles. So Tony,
Yep.
I believe that what you're seeing in Los Angeles is going to, like a virus, spread across the country in every major city this summer, and that it's not going to be just people leaving LA. There's going to be problems in Chicago. There's going to be
Oh, yeah.
problems in New York. You remember the old days we used to call hot summers when
Yep.
cities would burn? It was mainly
Oh,
because
yeah.
of the slums. Well, let me ask you this. Um, if we have this type of trouble in major metropolitan areas, how does that affect us economically? Would that be, if they block freeways and you can't get to stores, and we're bringing in Marines, and uh, possibly even habeas corpus is suspended? What happens to the economy? Can we still go to the mall and spend as much, or will people stay in their homes?
Well, I think so we talked about this on our on our Cloak and Dagger show over the weekend. I don't think people have the patience for this stuff this time around that they did in 2020. First of all. Second, I think that the whole home delivery movement through Amazon and the dry run that we had, not the dry run, but the
COVID.
scenario we had under COVID, I don't think going to malls matters as much as it once did. So, between the lack of patience that people have for this stuff compared to 2020, because remember, 2020 was an election year as well, right?
Right.
So Trump had to be really careful about the optics of it.
Well,
This
do you,
time around,
don't you think it's possible that this is going to happen in every major city that ICE is going into for this mass deportation? That there's going to be pushback, and we're going to have to call in troops to stabilize things?
I think it's possible, but let's take the LA scenario. Let's say they block up the Port of Long Beach. Okay, great, right? From a political perspective, that becomes an excuse for the economy not performing and an excuse for inflation, right? Then the Fed has to, respond because people need help getting, companies are going to need help getting loans, and they're going to have to, be a little bit looser on things. I'm not necessarily saying a cut, but they'll have to be a little bit looser in terms of money. So if these guys are smart and they start blocking up the ports, then it really looks bad, and American consumers lose patience really quickly. Okay. I think in places like California and maybe Seattle and Chicago, that I think those types of places, yeah, we'll definitely see flare-ups. New York, I'm not so sure. I think we'll see protests in New York. I don't think it'll get as bad as California. You may see other cities with that stuff. I live in Houston. We have a very large immigrant population here, but I don't necessarily see it getting as bad here as it is in LA. You have a political and a migrant dynamic there that I think is very different from places outside of, say, Chicago, and I'm trying to think of other places where it may happen. Maybe it happens in Minneapolis, but this is people destroying their own neighborhoods. They were setting Waymo cars on fire, electric vehicles that burn at 5,000 degrees or something. So they're ruining their own
Well,
neighborhoods
yeah,
to do this stuff, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't think it has a major impact on the US economy. I think it's possible that the COVID play of, at least for metropolitan areas, COVID play of Netflix, Amazon, and so becomes more of a play if this intensifies, because people just they don't want to deal with it. But I don't think you're going to have people staying home and not going to restaurants and all that stuff like you did in 2020, because people are tired of it. I don't think
yeah.
people are really all that worried about it.
Are you worried about anything? You do podcasts on geo risk. What do you see happening in Iran? Do they have a nuke already, or when will they have one?
So when I think about that, and I guess the question I have to ask is, so what? And I know this is probably not going to come over well, but let's say Iran does have a nuke. What's the worst case? Like, what happens? Pakistan has nukes,
Yeah,
right?
I know, right?
So, is it the end of the world if Iran has a nuke? I'm not saying I want Iran to have a nuke. I'm not saying I support that. But let's say they announce tomorrow that they've already got nukes.
Yeah.
Is the world going to end? Is the Middle East going to become, a nuclear wasteland? I don't really think so.
No,
So,
but there'll be more countries like Saudi Arabia will want nukes, and
yeah,
there'll be
right.
more proliferation is probably the outcome.
That's right. And so, so you'll have the Saudis with nukes, you'll have the Emiratis with nukes, Israel will proliferate nukes more. And, I think that's, I'm not in support of that. I just want to come across that very clearly. I'm not in support of that. But if Iran says they have nukes, this has been a story we've chased for 30 years or something like that,
My whole
right?
life, my whole life.
Right. And it's 80-year-old technology. So I find it shocking that they don't have nukes yet. I'll be
Yeah,
very honest. I find it
yeah.
really shocking. So am I worried about Iran having nukes? No. Do I think it makes more geopolitical,
Yeah.
puts more geopolitical risk on the table? To be honest, not that much. I still think that South China Sea is potentially a really big problem for the U.S. and for all of those
The
countries
world.
and China. There's more going on with China threatening, say, Filipino ships and other ships in the region, and that has a potential to block off global shipping. That's a problem. I do think Russia, Ukraine still has the possibility of becoming a nuclear conflict and dragging more people in. While I hope the
Okay,
peace.
let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Okay, because there were times early in the war, like it was Henry Kissinger
Hmm.
who dealt with Putin quite a lot.
Hmm.
And he said that his method for de-escalating is through escalation. He de-escalates by escalating. So after this recent attack, which was pretty embarrassing, do you think the likelihood of a tactical nuke in Ukraine is more likely than it's ever been during this war?
Um, is it more likely?
And with Europe
Um,
letting, being more liberal with what Ukraine could do in delivering missiles to them, and U.S. has kind of walked away from NATO in a way that
I'll say this much. I think Russia is more thoughtful about the use of nukes than many Westerners give them credit for, because I think they
I
understand. I
agree.
mean, they've had nukes for a long time, and
Yeah.
they're not just wantonly kind of throwing out nukes wherever, right? So I think they're more thoughtful about it. I think my worry is that Ukraine feeling, empowered by Europe and potentially by the US, that they might be the first ones to use technology that they can get their hands on.
Like a
So because
dirty
they feel
bomb,
justified. Sorry.
like a dirty bomb or
Sure.
something.
Yeah. And then that would beg Russia to do something.
nuclear response. All right,
Yeah,
so we saw some weekly stuff. We're 2 weeks away from summer. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for people in the markets from summer to fall?
I think we need to keep an eye on energy. I think crude, we've had a real respite with crude here.
Yeah,
I don't expect a major escalation in crude prices, but I do think that um, there's a
80,
possible. Sorry.
$80.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a possibility over the summer.
Yeah.
And I think as we go back into fall, we'll see more pressure on OPEC to pump more. So, but I think that it's a market begging to happen, I think.
Yeah, you like
Um,
oil, and it's very unloved. You
it's
read
very
everyone.
unloved.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw on my chart XLE, we're looking at, the energy guys. There's likely a run up in the energy names. So that's definitely something I would pay attention to. So that's one of them. Tech, I think, tech is really a stock picker's market now. I don't think it's a segment that you necessarily go after broadly. So, you really have to be careful of, are you going after Apple, which we see some potential upside in, not major upside, but some upside. Um, Qs, we see the Qs kind of falling over the next month. They'll be okay for the next week or two, but we see some difficulties with Qs. Google, we think will do fine this week, but we see a little bit of Google taking a little bit of a breather. Tesla,
that's your weakest Mag 7 stock, Google.
yeah.
It's had the weakest recovery off the sell-off.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in terms of tech, things like Alibaba, Chinese tech, if we see even small progress in the trade talks, it's possible that we see things like Alibaba do really well. So I would keep an eye on, like, I don't invest in China. I've spent, for your listeners, I don't know if they know, I spent 15 years in Asia. I don't invest in Chinese stocks. But we do see potential of Alibaba and the like doing well out of some solid, even incrementally solid news on U.S.-China trade talks.
Okay, one of our attendees has a question for you. Tony, it sounds like you would recommend something like the Asia First strategy put forth by the current undersecretary. Am I misunderstanding you?
No, the undersecretary you're referring to is a guy who aggressively pushes the idea that China is going to invade Taiwan any moment. I don't believe that is true. Um, but I do believe we need much more footing in Asia. Um, but yeah, I am with the Asia First strategy, partly because I spent so much time there, but also partly because Europe, they're relatively wealthy countries, and you know, uh, it's not like Russia was an unknown risk, and it's not
Yeah,
like that neighborhood isn't well known. So
yeah.
Asia, given our interest there, given our trade and economic interest there. We need to focus there more. And I think the US is doing that. I think the Biden administration really started developing plans and tech there. I think the previous defense secretary and secretary of state were terrible for Asia relations, but I think the move toward an Asia strategy was a positive one. And I think the current administration under Rubio and Hegseth are continuing what the Biden administration was moving toward anyway. Although they're much more, I guess, aggressively focused on stating it. But all of this has been moving in that direction anyway.
Tony Nash, the man who could answer any question I throw at him.
I
Uh,
tried it.
you did it. So, Tony, best way for people to follow you, keep in touch. I know on X you're at Tony Nash Nerd, which
That's right.
And website, you want to show your website?
Completeintel.com. So if anybody's looking for the daily interval forecast that we do, just contact us on completeintel.com. That's called CI Markets Alpha. And we're rolling that out bit by bit with some really key people. So if you want to be one of them, let us know.
Tony Nash, always great talking to you. Thank you for coming here, edifying the F.A.C.E community, bro.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right, everyone. Follow Tony, and you could ask him anything. So you're welcome, Lorena, Ingmar, everyone. Have a great day. Take the trial if you haven't, and get in there and check things out this week for $1. If you don't like it, I'll send you $1. John Hawkins, take it easy. Everyone, remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Money comes and goes. Time is gone forever. Make it count. Adios, everyone. See ya.